This is the Realty Classroom Podcast, episode number 32.
Welcome to the show that focuses on helping real estate agents build a bulletproof business plan so that they can sell more properties in less time and live a more fulfilled life.
Are you a real estate agent with an entrepreneurial spirit who wants to turn your job into a business without sacrificing your lifestyle, but you just can't seem to find the right plan to help you get there? Well, then you're definitely in the right place. I'm Danny Griffin, the founder of the Realty Classroom and the host of this podcast. And to help you take immediate action to build a better real estate agent business, I've created a free jumpstart course for you over at freeagentgift.com. It's a good refresher for all of you veterans out there on really getting back to what we're supposed to be doing. And for you rookies, you definitely want to start right there so you know exactly what to do from the start. I wish somebody helped me with that long ago. Let's get started. In this episode, what I'd like to cover is real estate agency must have a flow. Yeah, you got to have your flow when you're a real estate agent. Well, what do you mean and how do you do that? So let's get to the first point here. I like the whole concept of starting with the ending first. That's a really important concept because what you do is you set that North Star, as we've talked about before, where you can see very clearly that ultimately, wouldn't it be great to have this goal achieved? Well, what goal? What are you talking about? Well, if you're practicing agency correctly, you're serving it like it's a business or serving it up like it's a business, not just this transactional hobby, right? It has to be intentional. I talk about this all the time. So in an intentional real estate agency business, what's the ultimate goal? I know you want to say GCI because that's all we ever say. We're coached to say that. I want to hit this GCI and this number of transactions. Well, hold on. Take a breath. If you really think about this as a business person, and this is the service business. And ultimately, there's no secret that people who repeat and refer really drive our book of business well into the future. Then why don't we start with wanting to create happy past clients? That's right. Let that sink in for a second. The ultimate ending for me, the more that I understand how this business works, is I am trying to create the happiest past clients that I can. A lot of people call them raving fans. That's the exaggeration for the term, but let's just try to get these people across the service finish line because that's the business we're in. We're not really selling the house itself. Rather, we're offering the service to guide somebody in buying or selling property. So really, we want them to be happy with that guidance at the end. So I'm recommending that you start with that in mind. Now, in the same breath, let me take you all the way back to the beginning, because obviously an assembly line works left to right. In other words, if raw materials aren't coming through at one end, there's nothing to manufacture. I know some of you probably hearing me for the first time saying, what the heck is this guy talking about? We just sell houses, or okay, I'll bite. We just help people. Right. But what we're really doing is behaving like a manufacturing plant where we are manufacturing relationships. So when you start, you have to go get contact information of people with whom you can manufacture a relationship, right? Pretty simple. But if we started with the end in mind and we have this vision of this happy past client, let's go all the way back to the beginning and say, all right, who is the ideal customer? The ideal contact, whatever you want to call it in this moment in time. Who is ideal? You've probably heard that referred to as avatar, and a lot of you have sort of blown through it as an exercise that you heard online or maybe once at a conference, but it's far more important than that when you consider this whole thing correctly. Why? You see, it's easier for each of us individually, knowing our strengths and weaknesses, to build relationships with people that we like. I mean, what's wrong with that? Why don't we just get a little bit greedy in this exercise and say, I really only want to work with people I like? Now, I get it. There are going to be a lot of people that don't like us and we don't like them, but we still manufacture a decent enough relationship that ends in a past something, right? An ending where at least we get paid and they get what they want. But really, in an ideal situation, if you start with this avatar that's very clearly defined, your marketing becomes much easier, right? Because now you're saying, all right, I know who they are. I've narrowed my market niche as to where they might live. So now I can more clearly speak to them. And that's messaging, right? So as you really start to get messaging going, you see, there's that flow. It's beginning to feel a little less staccato, a little less start and stop. It's a flow. Well, what do you mean a flow? Well, if you're comfortable talking to this ideal avatar, you're less likely to start and stop your marketing message, wherever that might be, whether you're making regular phone calls, you're going to community events, joining groups, you're sending out postcards. You tend to be more interested in talking to your ideal customer regularly because you feel, I guess, less awkward, right? If you walk into a room of people that have similar interests, we're always more relaxed. The real us comes out. Well, that's true with marketing too. So there tends to be a greater flow when we feel like we're pursuing our ideal customer in our ideal location. But that can only happen when you define them clearly. Now, what happens next, and I think, again, you'll hear this common theme here, is my advice to stop hoarding. Let it sink in for a second. I'll take another pause and say, stop hoarding. Hoarding what? Leads. Right? If you don't have that defined ideal customer, then you're taking anything and everything. You're hoarding. You're grabbing all this contact information from this service or that lead platform, and you're hoarding them somewhere in the back end of something, right? In the CRM, the customer relationship manager is loaded with nothing but these leads. It's like the squirrel who goes out, and I call it, squirreling leads, right? Don't be a lead squirrel. It's like the squirrel goes out, knows the winter's coming, grabs up all the nuts, stuffs them in the tree, only to find out it's so stuffed he can't get back in the tree and he freezes to death outside for the winter, right? It doesn't make any sense. Stop being a hoarding lead squirrel and stuffing your world with all of these nuts, right? And I mean that these days. It's pretty easy to collect nuts, people who are just whimsically surfing the net and aren't anywhere close to something that will give your business flow. Now, I'm not saying, and I said this in the last episode too, that leads are a bad thing. But if we go to a lead source and we really have that ideal customer, we're more often exchanging properly with the lead company or the management agency, whomever is helping us get the contact information of people that might fit the description of ideal customer. You see? Starting to flow together now too, right? If I started at the ideal customer, now I can speak to people and website companies, etc., that can help me put my message that I want to my ideal company on their platform to help me get into conversations with them. Because the most important thing when we stop hoarding is that we stop really paying attention to the concept of just getting names for the sake of that, rather looking for who are the contacts that are ideal customer based that are most likely to become prospects. Because see, prospects are really the thing or the people who give the business what it so desperately needs to keep the flow going. And that's a steady stream of relationships that are building. I get it. I want now business too, as badly as anybody listening to this podcast. But now business comes from the accumulation of prospect relationships that at varying times are bubbling up to now. That's what flow sounds like, right? So let me go back and summarize these couple of points I've covered so far. Number one, I want a happy past client. Number two, well, then I need to go back to the beginning and say, who makes for the best past client? Who's that ideal customer? Let me identify them clearly and figure out where they are and get my message out. For the sake of doing what? So I don't have to hoard all these leads and then root through them just to find one nugget of gold. Rather, I can cut quickly to prospects, people that are willing to engage me, because we already started by having things in common. It's my ideal client, my ideal customer. That's who I'm speaking to. So it's easier to get to prospects, but then being respectful of those prospects, knowing that their timing is different. And it doesn't mean, by the way, that I can't add value that might quicken their timing. Sure, if I enlighten them with some good, insightful information, they gain confidence. Sure, maybe they do something sooner than later. But without that effort through a relationship, I'm nowhere. Okay. Now, I want to give you a big warning in this podcast, which I don't really get that heavy usually in the podcast, but I will this time. This week, while I was coaching a team that has been around a while, and I say team because there's something about that word team that gets all of these ideas together and really starts to discombobulate them. Because you see, when you are really not driven towards the end result first, you're less concerned about the ideal customer and you're more willing to just go out to every platform and buy leads. And then you have a bunch of people that you're trying to pay less than minimum wage from somewhere across the world to miraculously start a prospect relationship so you can pass it off to the buyer agent who's sitting there like a hungry bird in the nest. Ooh. I've seen that movie and it doesn't end well. You know why? I also lived in that movie. I really had a difficult time when all of a sudden that wasn't so easy to do anymore. And at the same time, the recession hit. And the warning comes from somebody who's experienced. Everybody panics at that moment in time. You're not able to skim the cream off the top. Your flow isn't there. Everything's starting and stopping, meaning people are coming and going, and you feel like you're crazy. And all of a sudden, the tail is wagging the dog, right? All the agents and the people that work for you and the contacts, and you are out of control. So you start and stop and move in every other direction, wondering what happened. This business isn't that good. No. You didn't understand how to build a business that flows regardless of the external circumstances. A business that flows is one that's appropriately set up and understood from the beginning, okay? So let's chunk up all these bullet points and I'll state them slowly. The ending first. Your ultimate goal is to create a happy past client. You start with the ideal customer. You want to define them clearly and focus on a small area where they live, where you can become that real clear brand to help people come to you directly and quickly so that you stop hoarding leads and you focus more on getting quality prospects. A prospect is a contact who's willing to engage in a relationship with you. A lead is a mystery. Better to focus on prospect creation as fast as possible. And if you have to go through leads, make sure those leads are being attracted through messages to your ideal customer. Okay. And the warning to all of you, I'll say this again, especially you team leaders. This is for top producers wanting to grow. Stop promising agents that you will give them the bulk of their business. If you are good enough to get agents overflow appointments, wonderful, fabulous. I'll give you a standing ovation. But the minute that you start to promise that, the next thing you know, your top producing book of business has gone in the tank. The self-financing of your company has gone in the tank, and everything is very difficult to do. Don't delude yourself. The best business is the one that empowers everybody to grow and to use their best skill set, not to overpromise them something that's based on a model that eventually breaks down or worse, simply doesn't scale up that well. All right. So I want to summarize the key point here. Focus on building a business that's always flowing, not this starting and stopping stuff. Build long-term relationships so everything keeps moving along. And remember, of course, you can take immediate action and get started in the right direction with our free video course over at freeagentgift.com. That's what to do, and it's a good wireframe. Get over there when you can. If you like what you learned here, then we'd appreciate it if you would share these insights with other entrepreneurial real estate agents just like you so that they can find their way here to join us. I'd appreciate that effort. Thank you for doing it. And don't forget to subscribe or follow us on whichever platform you're listening to this podcast on. And of course, a positive review is always appreciated if you move to do so. But we also broadcast our live sales training on Facebook every Friday at 1 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. So remember to like our page over there so you won't miss the notifications. Hey, and of course, thanks for listening. I appreciate your time. We look forward to helping you in the next episode.
You've been listening to The Realty Classroom with Danny Griffin. Join us next time to continue learning how to build a smarter real estate agent business plan that helps you live a more fulfilled life.